Dead men tell no tales, but their ships speak volumes. Welcome to the Cursed Compass, where we explore the darkest maritime mysteries. It's 2 a.m. in Corpus Christi Bay. The water is pitch black, and resting heavily against the current is a 27,000-ton steel monolith. During World War II, Japanese propagandists, most notably Tokyo Rose, broadcasted that this Essex-class aircraft carrier had been sunk on 4 separate occasions. Because the ship kept returning to the fight, wrapped in a blue-gray camouflage that blended into the Pacific waves, her enemies gave her a nickname, the Blue Ghost. This museum is now one of the most documented paranormal locations in Texas. The reports here bypass common ghost stories of cold spots or floating orbs. Instead, investigators describe a frozen crew, sailors who operate exactly as they did in 1943, seemingly unaware that their war ended decades ago. Witnesses describe figures in pristine vintage Navy uniforms directing tourists through the labyrinth of corridors. Below deck, heavy footsteps echo in the pitch black, accompanied by the frantic sounds of men running toward their battle stations and the muffled screams of trapped sailors. The Lexington's layout reflects its history. Each deck holds a different layer of the ship's service, and as we move deeper into the hull, we find the specific points where the steel absorbed the trauma of the Pacific. We start on the flight deck. Commissioned in 1943, this sunlit airstrip served as the primary launching pad for American air power in the Pacific Theater. That wide-open exposure made the flight deck a primary target for aerial attack. In late 1944, a Japanese Kamikaze aircraft breached the carrier's defenses and smashed into the ship's island structure, igniting a massive fireball that sprayed burning aviation fuel and shrapnel across the decks. 50 men died in that single blast. The violence here wasn't limited to the 1940s. In 1989, a student aviator lost control of a T-2 training aircraft during a landing attempt, killing 5 more people. It is on this exact deck that tourists frequently encounter a young man in a crisp vintage uniform. They call him Charlie. He politely guides disoriented guests back to the main stairwells before vanishing. The flight deck's history is defined by sudden, fiery death from above. For many who visit, spirits like Charlie represent a lingering protective presence, sailors who remain on a perpetual watch over those walking their deck. Moving down from the open air, we enter the belly of the ship, the massive, claustrophobic hangar bays. This enclosed cavern was the industrial center of the Lexington, where aircraft were armed, repaired, and prepped for combat. This chart visualizes the scale of violence. While standard carriers produced high yields, the Lexington's air groups alone destroyed nearly 1,000 enemy aircraft. Organizing this required thousands of men in hypervigilance, living under the constant psychological pressure of global war. Today, when visitors step into areas like the switch room, they frequently report a sudden sense of physical dread. Some become ill. Others stand in the darkness and hear the sharp, echoing cracks of phantom gunfire rolling through the corridors. The hangar level was the ship's center of gravity, a space where tension was a daily requirement for survival. For many, walking these halls today isn't a passive observation. It's a physical encounter with an atmosphere of high-stakes pressure that never fully lifted. Finally, we descend to the absolute lowest point of the ship. Far beneath the waterline lies a claustrophobic labyrinth of engine rooms, dials, valves, and heavy metal bulkheads. In December 1943, during a raid off Kwajalein, a Japanese torpedo slammed directly into the Lexington's starboard side. The explosion instantly killed 9 men and knocked out the ship's steering gear. As water flooded the lower levels, the crew faced the brutal reality of naval damage control. To prevent the vessel from sinking, the flooded compartments had to be sealed off. Teams welded the heavy steel doors shut, trapping the casualties behind them. It is in this pitch-black underworld that investigators record their most harrowing accounts. They report shadow figures darting past their equipment, and the distinct, unmistakable sounds of men screaming from the other side of the sealed walls. The panic of those final moments, trapped in a flooding compartment in the dark, remains the recurring center of the ship's most violent reports. For the men below the waterline, the war didn't end with a surrender. It stopped here, in the middle of a desperate, unfinished repair. The Lexington survived the Pacific, the Kamikaze strikes, and the torpedoes. She was modernized and spent her final active years as a training vessel, serving the Navy for nearly half a century. Today, she rests permanently in Corpus Christi Bay, operating as a public museum for those seeking to understand the life of a sailor or catch a glimpse of the paranormal. But beneath the guided tours and the ghost stories lies a concrete human cost. 370 men died aboard this vessel during its service. Whether you view these phenomena as literal spirits or the psychological residue of history, the result is the same. The legend of the Blue Ghost forces us to step into the dark and physically feel the weight